Hey, my name is TJ. I'm a young person in long-term recovery here hosting the Recovery Matters podcast. Today, I have a very special guest. I have Vinny, aka Skinny Vinny, who is the co-host of the Wild Ride podcast with Steve-O, and he's also the co-star of Your Pranks, our show, alongside Zackass.
Thanks so much for having me on. I'm stoked to be doing this. Some people know me as Vinny. Some people know me as Skinny Vinny. Some people even know me as Joe. But that was a long time ago. But yeah, man, I'm also a person with in recovery as well. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, dude, thank you so much. So I would love to have you tell some of your recovery story here today. So you grew up in Connecticut. You want to tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I grew up, I'm originally from, like, where it all started was like the East Haven, New Haven area. I grew up in a family of alcoholics and addicts. My father passed away, this is kind of crazy because I just found this out recently. My whole life, I'm 37 years old. My whole life, I thought my father originally passed away from he was riding his Harley and he got hit by a drunk driver and it really fucked his leg up. And I thought he passed away from an infection that started in his leg, grew to his heart, and ultimately killed him. But just recently, because I've been kind of in the beginning stages of like writing a book. And so I've been like asking all family members and my sisters things that like I can't remember when I was that young, you know. And my sister like told me, he was like, "No, your father passed away from an overdose from all the pain medication that he was given from the accident." And so I just found that out maybe 5 months ago, which is crazy. You know, am I a little resentful? Maybe a little bit,
Yeah.
but you know, it's like and then my mom was an addict as well, and it's just full of alcoholics and addicts, you know. It's just but my mom was one of those like functioning addicts, you know. She was still able to like have a full-time great job at Yale University while she's like shooting dope.
Okay.
You know, like I don't know how, because I'm not one of those addicts. Like I can't keep any relationships, I can't keep any jobs when I'm getting loaded.
Yep.
So my hat's off to her for to be able to do that. Yeah, then it was just me knowing what addiction was and what drugs were and finding needles at a very young age around the house. And, you know, it was at that time, I thought it was kind of normal. You know, I thought, hey, I thought everybody's parents did this. I thought everybody's parents just shoot dope, you know? And then around like 10, 11 years old, I kind of gave my mom an ultimatum. You're either going to stop getting loaded or you're going to lose me too, just like we lost Pops, which is kind of crazy for a 10-year-old to be giving that kind of ultimatum to their mother.
Yep.
You know? And it's crazy because that day I gave her the ultimatum, that was the last day that she ever put a needle in her arm. She got on the methadone program and has been on the methadone program since.
Okay.
Like 30 years later. But hey, she never put another needle in her arm and she used it to her advantage, and she hasn't done drugs since. And as far as like my drug story, it kind of started at a pretty young age of like the typical high schooler kid wanting to fit in and smoking weed and drinking and stuff. And I always had the need of like being the center of attention and being wanted by my peers. So it's like my house was the party spot, you know, and my mom was kind of cool with it, you know, after going through the steps and everything and doing all that, like I kind of realized that my mom was my biggest enabler. You know, I kind of feel like she was definitely more of a best friend than a mother. And I think reason being was she was trying to make up for like my father passing away and her being an addict from back in the day. Like she wanted to be cool and like allow me to have parties at the house and but she told me, she's like, I'm cool with you smoking weed, I'm cool with you drinking, but as long as you're not putting anything up your nose or in your arms, then you're good, you know. And I saw what it did to her. I saw what it did to my uncle. I saw what it did to everybody in my family. So I was like, no brainer. I'm never gonna do that.
Yep.
Like, are you kidding me? I'm not that young. And it's like my story with drugs and alcohol. It has like a common denominator of like very fast transitions and very fast everything. Because I'm an extremist. I don't pussyfoot around. I'm not 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I go all in. And I'm the kind of addict that like I like to touch the line of death. I
Okay.
don't like to fucking, I'm not like a fucking social drinker. Like if I'm drinking, I'm fucking polishing off a handle of Mount Gay rum and like blacking out in a swamp. Like
Yes.
that's my kind of getting loaded. And that transitioned to the opiates and the pills and all and the Xanax and all that stuff. And it's the same thing. Like I don't just take a fucking I just don't eat one pill. I'm smoking five at a time. High school was normal for me though, it was like I moved from East Haven to New Haven. I moved to Old Saybrook just because mom wanted me to have better schooling.
Yep.
Like we went from New Haven where it was just straight poverty. We didn't have money to moving to Old Saybrook in with my grandmother, which is like Saybrook, is like one of the richest towns in Connecticut on the shoreline. So it's
Yep.
like me being the black sheep with no money, moving to Saybrook where everybody's driving Audis and wearing Lacoste, and I felt very out of place and like the black sheep, but I was still always able to like fit into every clique, every group,
Okay.
and played baseball. My main thing was skateboarding, like the whole skateboarding scene and filming stupid stuff because Jackass came out around then. So it's like that's kind of where that's like, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to travel the world with my dumb buddies and do dumb shit just to make people laugh.
And have
That's
a
kind of
great
what I'm trying
time.
to do. And have a great time. And then once the partying started and the drugs started, that dream and passion kind of like faded away. I went from having a great childhood in high school to the next thing you know, I'm graduating high school and I'm like going back and forth to Staten Island, picking up a couple hundred perk 30s at a time, just so I could be well. And again, back to the quick transitions of like, okay, I'm snorting pills. Next thing you know, I'm smoking pills. Next thing you know, I'm snorting heroin. Next thing you know, I'm shooting heroin. Next thing you know, I'm homeless in Vermont and Burlington, like just roaming the streets, being a heroin addict. It's just like just straight chaos and insanity. And long story short, it's like I sell everything that I have. I have nothing to my name. I think the only thing I had left was like a 98 Ford Escort, like, that I was like it wasn't even a hatchback,
Yeah.
but I was sleeping in the trunk.
Hmm.
Like my big ass sleeping in like a 98 Ford Escort trunk in Burlington when it's freezing just to like just have some sort of shelter. It was just like one thing after another, best friends overdosing and dying.
Hmm.
Like everybody around me is dying or getting arrested, and I'm in and out of like detoxes and treatment centers, and I never went into these programs to like me. It was just like to make my mom shut up. Maybe I got a case that I had to go to rehab. It was never for me, and I was way more comfortable being on the streets than anything. Like I had no intentions. Like it got to a point when I was like mid 20s where I kind of accepted that I'm gonna live the rest of my life a lonely, homeless heroin addict, and I'm gonna die a lonely, loneless like heroin addict. And I was
Yep.
totally cool with it. I was totally chill. I was comfortable. I didn't care. Like I just didn't have any motivation or any care in the world to just try to be, and like try to get a job, maybe get sober. I didn't give a fuck. Late 20s, it was like I go back to Connecticut because a really good friend of ours passed away from an overdose,
Hmm.
which still kind of fucks me up because he was one of those kids that he was so harmless. He was so sweet. He never hurt a fly. He didn't rob. He didn't steal to like get his fix. He didn't do any. He didn't hurt people to get his own fix. Like he hustled for here and there to get his fix, but like he wasn't like me where I'm out robbing and stealing and hurting people. Like he had one overdose and passed away. I have close to 15 overdoses, and I have died with three of those. And God's grace, I'm still here. So
Hmm.
like it kind of fucked me up saying like, why him? Like he didn't hurt anybody. So when I got sober, it was like kind of like a survivor's guilt, imposter syndrome kind of thing. Like, fuck, dude, like, how am I? I'm not just living anymore, I'm thriving. And John passed away with just one.
Yep.
Um, so after he passed, like I went back down to Connecticut, back to like the New Haven, East Haven area, and I was doing the same thing. I had no intentions of getting sober, and I was living. And in New England, you need to find shelter in the
Oh
winter
yeah.
and the falls. So it's the only thing that I could really find was I slept in a handicap sized porta potty
Okay.
for like close to 3 years, and
Jesus.
again I was comfortable.
Yep.
I was chilling, and I'd be in that fucking thing, just watching YouTube videos, shooting dope, and it's so crazy because the YouTube videos that I would watch while I was in that thing, it would be like the same like five creators, right? It would be Steve-O and his group of guys. It would be Chad Tepper and his group of guys, and then like some other skaters. Those guys are like my best friends now. It's so strange, And while I was there, or while I was in that porta potty, I get a call from a previous friend, I'll say. Um, I don't want to talk ill on him because he just passed away like a week ago from an overdose. We grew up together in Saybrook, and he was catching case after case. He just couldn't stop getting arrested,
Hmm.
and ultimately he ended up saying my name, which ended up me getting set up, and I got some charges, some narcotic charges, and possession of intent to sell and stuff. Really fucked my shit up.
Oh yeah.
He like prior went to LA or came here to LA to get sober, and he found out that I was like living in a porta potty. So he found my number and called me. He's like, "Look, dude, I'm sorry for what I did. I'll fly you to LA, but you got to go into treatment. You have to get sober." And in my head, my sick thinking at the time, it's like, I still hate you, but sure, I'll take your free flight to LA, because in my head, it's way easier to be homeless in LA than it is on the East Coast.
Yep.
So I was like, yeah, sure, dude. I'll come out there. I'll take your flight. Thank you so much. Thank you, dude. I'm so grateful for you. Like, and I get on the flight and I go to the treatment center that he wanted me to, and it's so funny because I was just talking to somebody about this yesterday. I led a walkout of the rehab that I was at. I was just like, come on, guys, let's go get high. Like I was one of those guys that like the worst kind of clients. Like
Yep.
I'd convince all the other guys just leave with me. Let's just go get loaded. And yeah, that's what I did. And I left that rehab, and I was closer to like Newport Beach down in like the Huntington area or the OC area, and I stayed on the beach for like a couple weeks, and then slowly started to make my way north up to LA, and I was doing my thing on Skid Row for a few months, and
Okay.
my mom was still paying for my health insurance at the time. So at this time, I'm 29 years old, and my mom was still paying for my health insurance, and I was taking advantage of it. I would use it to go into a sober living for a few days, sleep in a bed, eat some food, and then just leave. And I would do that for months while like my main hub was Skid Row. And yeah, it was just a constant cycle, revolving door. This sober living, leaving. This sober living, leaving. This sober living, leaving. And then eventually, the last sober living that I left to go get loaded, I was sitting on the curb waiting for my Uber to pick me up, and I had what I call nowadays like it was a spiritual experience in every way. It
Yep.
was I had the most vivid whisper of our buddy John, who passed away in Burlington, that I mentioned, and it was like he was standing behind me, whispering in my ear, "Dog, enough is enough," and that scared me. Like I was just like, "The fuck was that?" You know what I mean? Like there's
Yes.
nobody with me. Like what the fuck was that? It scared me enough to the point where it's just like, okay, I'm not gonna get high today. So I called the director of the sober living network that's out here, and he was just like, I was just like, bro, like, give me one more shot. In my head, I'm like, I'll get loaded tomorrow. I'll get high tomorrow, right? But I'm telling him, give me one more shot, bro. I swear I got this. Like I just need one more chance. He's like, bro, you've left every other sober living that we have. Like, what are you doing? I'm just like, bro, one more chance. And he gives me one more chance, and puts me into a house called Design for Recovery in West LA. And when I walked into the house is where I met Zackass. And he already had an internet presence at the time, so I knew who he was. And he was doing the same stuff that the Jackass guys do, like viral, but it's online, it's the internet. Like Jackass guys didn't have the internet back in the day; it was just like TV and movies. So it's
Yep.
like he was doing it for the internet, and I knew who he was, and I didn't want to tell him that I was a fan. Like, hey, I watch your shit all the time. Like, But and he saw that I had a certain tattoo right here. It was a heartogram tattoo that I had at one point, and he was just like, "Oh, dude, you like the band Him and Bam and shit?" I was like, "Yeah." It's like that's my shit, you know. And so we clicked very easy. And at the time, he needed a filmer. That's what I did. You know, I grew up filming. I had a camera in my hand. Like everywhere that we went, I had a camera with me. I was like, "Yeah, bro, I'll film. Like I know I like." This is me. Like I know what I'm doing when it comes to cameras, and especially with like this culture. Like this is what I do. And I started filming his shit, and eventually he was just like, "All right, dude, welcome to the team." And he was in the process of like filming a TV show for MTV. I'm like traveling the country filming like promos for an MTV show and like meeting all these cool people. And in my head, I'm like, "Whoa, this is kind of crazy." I still have the intentions of getting loaded because obviously I'm not doing the steps. I'm not fucking doing any work on myself. I still have the intentions of getting loaded like later on, but really cool shit was happening that I like to say like what we do, I love this much better than getting loaded. You know, so it's like I was like, okay, I'll get high later. It was just like a snowball effect of more cool shit happening, meeting crazy people, like doing these viral videos. And the next thing you know, it's like I'm in a video and all of a sudden I'm getting recognized from that one video that I was in. And I was just like, holy shit, getting recognized on the street is like crazy. It's like a crazier high than shooting heroin. You know, it's like now I'm addicted to the attention like that. So I'm like, oh, let me start making my own content. The next thing you know, Bam Margera is hitting us up, flying us to the castle, and like we're filming with him and Danny Way, and then we're fucking like Steve is reaching out, and it's just like all these people that I had posters on my wall in Saybrook. I'm like working with these people. So now like a year goes by. I have like a year sober, and I'm still not working the steps. I'm going to meetings and stuff just because I live in a sober living and I have to.
Mm-hmm.
I have like a year sober. The TV show came out on MTV, you know, and like we're fucking killing it in that aspect. We're still living in a sober living, and the house owner was like, "Hey, dude, you want to work? You want to work for the house? You won't have to pay rent. You know, like you'll be able to whatever money you make, you could put to the side." It's like, fuck yeah, that's sick. I mean, I have nowhere else to go anyway. You know, it's like an apartment to go home to. Like, yeah, sure. So now I'm working at the house, but here's the thing. I'm preaching to the guys, like we have house meetings every Sundays, and I'm like preaching, you guys gotta do your steps. You guys gotta do this, you guys do that. When I'm not doing shit. You know, I'm basically a dry drunk. I'm not fucking doing anything. And so now, but now with having a year sober now, it's like my morals are starting to come back. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
starting to like feel bad because I'm preaching something to these guys that I'm not doing myself. So I was just like, okay, what it can't hurt, you know? So now I'm like I'm thoroughly starting the steps and really putting in the work. And it was like kind of like a release almost, you know, it was like a release of like breathe that I've never really felt before. And then on top of it, like I was able to like never mind am I doing all this rad shit and like building my entertainment career and building a name for myself. Like I'm also able to like look in the mirror and be like, you're pretty cool. You know, like you're not the scumbag that you thought you were. You're not like, yeah, you've hurt a lot of people and like you've done a lot of shitty fucking stuff, but that's what the steps are for. You know, it's like you have to process the work. You have to process everything that you've done and you know, the amends and everything and like really like clean your side of the street. And that was a long process, you know, and it was just, but it was able that allowed me to look in the mirror and fucking love myself, you know, like because
Yes.
bro, I was so ashamed of the person who I was from like the age 20 to 30. It was just a decade of like not being able to look in the mirror and being just so ashamed of who I was, even though I didn't care, but I was ashamed, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
so like getting through the steps was like it was like a level up. I like to say I was just like, okay, I'm here, but now I just fucking jumped up here because I like actually did the work and processed everything and did it thoroughly, dude. I stayed in that sober living for 3 years. My whole entertainment career happened while I was living in a bunk bed.
That's
You
cool.
know, it was like such a strange fucking thing that happened when Jackass first came out. So it was 2001,
Mm-hmm.
and it was the first episode that came out on MTV, and I was hooked, right? I was just like, what is this? And I the first episode, I pointed to the TV and I was like, oh dude, I was like 13. I was like, Mom, this is what I want to do. I finally know what I want to do. This is what I want to do. And she laughed. She was supportive, and she was like, "Oh, okay." And then like 3 years ago, when I went back east to visit, she's like, "Hey, remember when you pointed at the TV all those years ago and you said, 'Mom, this is what I want to do'?" She was like, "You're not just doing it. You're doing it with the people that you pointed at the TV." You know, it's like, I had to think and sit about that. I was like, wow. I just celebrated 7 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you. It was February 1st. I celebrated 7 years, and you know, this time around, because before this sobriety, I couldn't get past 30 days.
Yep.
Dude, it was like wasn't hard this time. I could genuinely say the reason being why it wasn't hard this time is because I had a purpose.
Yes.
I have a reason to wake up, and I have all these amazing people in my life. I have like something to look forward to the next day. It's just like back in the day, it's just like, oh, I'm waking up. Fuck.
Mm-hmm.
I had time to go get well.
Yep.
It's just like, so I like now, like I had a purpose, and I had this thing that I wanted to do all those years ago kind of just fell on my lap. So it's just like, okay, I'm holding it as tight as I can. I'm never letting go of this.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like it gave me a reason to wake up. And then plus it's just like the content that we were making, is like just getting bigger and bigger. And then it leads to TV shows and podcasts and traveling the world with my fucking heroes. And, it's like, why would I go back to it? It just makes no sense. I'm very lucky in a sense to how it kind of just fell on my lap. But when I recognized that it fell on my lap, I busted my ass to keep it. I feel as if what happened to me is luckier than getting like hitting the lotto.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell my guys that because I work in treatment as well, and I've been doing that for the last 5 years, and I tell all my guys, I'm like, look, what happened to me is like this shit doesn't happen to everybody, but if it happened to me, it can happen to you. It's just purpose. You just need purpose,
Mm-hmm.
and like I don't give a fuck if your purpose is like you're gonna go fucking knock on the neighbor's door and ask if you could walk her dog. You know what I mean? Like that's a purpose. Might not be the purpose that you want right away or when you want it, but find a fucking purpose for a little bit and just get through it, and your shit will come.
Yes.
And it's been a fucking crazy ride, dude.
Yeah. So I grew up in a household with a lot of addiction, and everything was all around. My mom would take us to the movies about once a month, and that was like our escape. We could pretend for 2 hours that life at home wasn't insane.
Yeah.
And when Jackass 2 came out, I was like 12 or 13. I begged her. I said, "Mom, you have to take me to see this." And she was like, "Nope, not doing it, blah, blah, blah." One day I was sitting in class, and they called me. They said, "You got a doctor's appointment. Your mom's here." I was like, "What the fuck is this?" And she went up, "Hey, what's up? Doctor's appointment." We get in the car, and she goes, "Guess where we're going?" And I was like, "Where?" She's like, "Jackass 2." And
That's a cool story. That's sick.
yeah, made my whole world,
I feel like being in a position where not just sobriety wise, but like a little bit of success and like the dream, like finally having the dream, and it puts me in a position where it's like guys, like a lot of people, could see my story and resonate, and
yes.
like I said, could just be like, dude, if this fucking like lazy heroin addict, and then like it also, with my background in the entertainment, it also helps in a way where like because I run a few houses, sober houses here, and if we get one of the guys, like a new guy coming in, like it's happened a few times where they'll come in and they'll recognize me and they'll be like, "What the fuck? What do you do?" and I'm just like, "Yeah, dude, welcome to the house," and it makes it a little bit cooler for guys to like want to stay, and just give it a shot and just try, So it's a very cool feeling, and especially it's like the houses that I run were the houses where I got sober.
Yep.
So it also helps me that way. It's like I'm super grateful to be able to give back to the house that fucking helped me.
Dude,
And
that's amazing.
I take a lot of pride in it because we've been able to like find that balance, because I've been in countless sober livings, and there was either, it would either be a house with no structure whatsoever, and you're gonna find me fucking shooting dope behind the couch, right? Or or it's a house with too much structure where you're gonna take my phone for 90 days. I'm out. fuck that,
Mm-hmm.
so it would scare me away. And I take a lot of pride in the way that we've been able to find that balance between like structure, accountability, freedom, and like, okay, what do you want in life? Like, so I take a lot of pride in that. And it's a pretty gnarly industry to work in because you build a lot of relationships with guys.
Yes.
And just as well as I do that like people are dying left and right.
Yep.
So it's like you build a relationship with the guy, and then you go to work the next day and you found out that he overdosed.
Yep.
It's like it's fucking super gnarly, and it's very heavy on the heart. It's very heavy on the mental, and it's not meant for everybody. I'll tell you that. I'm super grateful that I was put in a position to where, and like earlier when I was saying like I kind of had like survivor's guilt and like imposter syndrome of like why me, questioning, and it's just like it took me a while to like stop questioning why me, and then eventually I was just like I don't need to know why,
Mm-hmm.
but then after that I'm just like fuck, I kind of do know why now, it's just like it gives me the opportunity to like give back and help, which is like ultimately us as alcoholics and addicts. It's just like that's what keeps us sober is like
Yes.
helping another alcoholic, killing a bunch of birds with one stone. I'm able to help a lot of people. I'm like to give back in the recovery world that ultimately keeps me sober. And then the entertainment stuff, it's just like other addicts that are struggling with the same shit that I did could see me and be like, dude, like being sober might actually be kind of cool. Like they can go on my social medias and see like, damn, this dude's fucking like traveling the world, like touring Australia with Steve-O, doing stand-up comedy
Yeah.
and doing shit like that. But like Steve-O is 16 years sober.
Yep.
It's just like Steve's got 16 years, I got 7. Our other guy's got like 11. It's just like we're just a bunch of sober dudes just fucking doing like the coolest shit.
Having a
And
great time.
yeah, and I'm super grateful for that. It's very fucking weird how it happened. Yeah.